The 2020 Formula One season and the Sakhir Grand Prix is notable for one reason in particular. Not just the high-speed nature of the circuit, though that is very interesting, but short-term replacement drivers. A few times this year, for various reasons, most of them medical, a number of drivers have been drafted in by the teams to take over the seats of established drivers, and in some cases, who can forget Nico Hülkenberg, at very, very short notice. Well, it's happened again here in Bahrain, and we will see some really interesting challenges faced by the teams. Normally, when a team is changing driver, there's a lot of preparation that goes in ahead of time, and we saw that with Renault earlier this year, with Fernando Alonso getting a detailed seat fitting at the team's Enstone base. They spent an awful lot of weeks and time just honing that seat. He got into the cockpit, it got fitted in, he made sure everything in that car was exactly to his liking. But those drivers coming in at short notice don't have that luxury, and they have to basically deal with what they're given. So when a driver change is planned, so Jack Aitken in the Williams, for example, he's already driven that car in a free practice session. So the team have already got his installation, his seat, everything's all set. They just need to change over the equipment. But in the case of George Russell, it wasn't so easy. Mercedes didn't have a plan to run Russell at this point of the year in the W11. And when he got into the car, he found that there was a major problem. Now, you know what they say about men with big feet? That's right, they need a big chassis. And it turns out the W11 isn't quite big enough to accommodate George Russell's feet. He wears a UK size 11 racing boot, and that's about 1 centimetre bigger than the minimum cross-sectional area of the front of a 2020 Formula One monocoque. So what does Russell have to do? Well, for starters, he has to wear shoes that are 1 size too small for his feet. That's quite uncomfortable, and as you can see at the front of the car here, you can see how far Russell's feet stick out above Lewis Hamilton's pedals. He can only just squeeze his feet into the front of the car. Now, wearing those boots that are 1 size too small is definitely going to be deeply uncomfortable for the young English driver. However, it's not entirely uncommon for racing drivers to find this problem. I know a number of drivers, and in fact I used to do it myself, wear a size of race boots 1 size too small. It gives you slightly better feeling from the pedals, but also they are slightly smaller. You do get a bit more space in a single-seater footwell. But let's not forget, back in the 1970s, James Hunt, the former British world champion, he used to cut the ends off his racing boots to help him fit into the cockpit of his McLaren. I'm not sure the FIA would be too pleased to see George Russell doing exactly that in the Sakhir Grand Prix this weekend. One other thing a reserve driver or a last-minute substitute is going to have to get used to is, well, driving the car itself. And you may think, well, you're a professional racing driver, you can get into anything and drive. Well, yes, you can, but there are a lot of differences between the cars. And for George Russell, this will really stick out. There's a key difference between the Williams cockpit and the Mercedes. Have a look. Here's Jack Aitken out in qualifying or free practice at the Sakhir Grand Prix, and you can see the dashboard on the Williams is mounted to the monocoque of the car. It's not mounted to the steering wheel, and this is something that's unique to Williams. So when Aitken turns the steering wheel, the dashboard doesn't move with it. So in this situation, there was a message up on the dashboard and Aitken's hand was in the way. He probably couldn't have seen that message, but he was probably controlling it anyway, so knew what it said. But when you take a look at the Mercedes steering wheel, here with George Russell at the wheel, you can see that readout is on the steering wheel, and when Russell turns the steering wheel, the readout turns with the wheel, as you'd expect. This seems like a really minor, insignificant change, but if you've been racing all year, having your dashboard just there in front of you, and then you get into a car and you turn the steering wheel and the dashboard moves with the wheel, that could create a slight hesitation, cost you a little bit of time, or in the worst case scenario, you could end up like Pastor Maldonado in the Lotus many years ago, who got confused by his own steering wheel and managed to crash the car. Though for Pastor Maldonado, that wasn't particularly unusual.